The title of this story is "The First Step is the Hardest," and it goes like this. My girlfriend Susan and I went to see my old pal Kelly. He was staying at an alcohol recovery halfway house. Concerned about my use of Xanax and Vicodin, he gave Susan a Narcotics Anonymous handbook and encouraged her to make me read it. After the visit, we went to the Swordfish Barn Grill. It was my favorite haunt because the owner had found a loophole in the state's anti-smoking law, that it was legal to light up in a building if one were taking part in a theatrical production. Now every night was amateur performance art night at the Swordfish. Employees wore costumes as part of the ruse. It seemed like everyone was in on it. Although most patrons couldn't be bothered to dress up, almost all of them were smoking and occasionally spouting movie quotes in between drinks. It was too good to last, and we were all taking advantage of it for as long as we could. There was a strange, perverse thrill to being there. I felt like I'd been given the password to a speakeasy during Prohibition. I even enjoyed breathing in the stale air, catching the last wisp of secondhand smoke before they disappeared into history. We seated ourselves at a booth, and Susan put the book she'd been carrying on the table between us. I opened up a fresh pack of Pall Malls, took one out, and said, "To light or not to light? That is the question." Susan answered it for me by holding her well-worn Zippo under my cigarette. She hadn't smoked in months, but always had that lighter on hand. I looked at Susan as I puffed my habit to life. She seemed to have a new, slightly unnerving serenity about her. Our waitress arrived. She was dressed in a black skeleton outfit that was a little too tight. All the bones from the neck on down were painted on it, but were starting to fade from age and repeated washings. "Lady Lazarus!" I exclaimed. "It's not every evening a beautiful waitress rises from the dead just to take my order." "Sir, I'd appreciate it if you didn't use blasphemy," she said with the conviction of a new convert to the Church of the Easily Offended. However, when she saw my new book, her tone went from indignation to elation as she stammered, "You're in Narcotics Anonymous too? Tell me, what kind of drugs were you taking?" "Oh no," I answered. "I don't do drugs. Nothing illegal anyway. Just a few prescription ones." "Sounds to me like you're in denial. Prescription drugs can be just as addicting, you know. You don't drink too, do you?" I felt like the entire room was listening in. "Tell me about the program," I said, wanting to get out of the spotlight. It worked. I heard, along with anyone within 100 feet of us, of her endless battles with substance abuse, the religion of NA, and how it had saved her. After the monologue, she gave me a long, searching look. "Well?" she asked. "Well, what?" I replied. Are you going to go to a meeting? No. Why not? I don't want to. Don't you think it's time you admit to yourself that you have a problem? I don't have a problem. Yes, you do. Just look at the way you're chain smoking. You're a compulsive personality. You can't tell me you can manage your intake of drugs. Listen, Missy thing, my doctor prescribed them to me. Doesn't matter. You've got a problem. Admit it. I do not. You do too. Do not. Do too. I could see this would go on forever. So I decided to jump back into the spotlight. I stood on my seat and announced, "Hello, my name is Randall, and I'm a prescription drug addict." For some reason, I was expecting a unison response of, "Hello, Randall," or at least some applause. But there was nothing but silence and blank stares from the crowd. Except for Susan. She covered both eyes and sank into her corner of the booth with a sigh. I stayed up there, surveying the scene for a moment that seemed like an eternity. Then the manager stormed out of the kitchen and glared at the waitress. "God damn it, girl! How many times do I have to tell you that customers don't want to hear about that crap?" He peered up at me. "You okay, sir?" "Sure. I don't have a problem. I could quit any time, if I wanted to." "Well, sorry for the inconvenience. Please, as you were." I sat back down and he barked at the waitress to get back to work. What would you like?" she asked nervously. "I'll take a beer." Her eyes widened in horror. "What?" "Oh, calm down," I laughed. "I was just kidding. Bring me a BLT and some coffee." "I don't want anything," Susan said before anybody could ask. "Caffeine is a drug too," the waitress snapped as she left for her next table. My girlfriend wouldn't talk to me for the whole meal, but my sandwich turned out to be exquisite. I left a $5 tip with a cigarette on top of the bill. When I drove Susan home, I kept glancing at Kelly's 90-day sobriety chip. He gave it to me as a memento of our friendship. It was attached to the end of my keychain and was bouncing up and down like it was trying to attract attention. Supposedly, I could take it into any bar, set it on the counter, and be given a free drink for it. "They'll do it because they want your business back," is what Kelly had told me. I was still getting the silent treatment from Susan. I fumbled for my smokes and pulled out my last Pall Mall. She automatically lit it for me, then placed her lighter on the dashboard and quietly gazed at it for the rest of the trip. Susan broke her vow of silence when we got to her house. She turned to me and hissed, "I don't want to see you anymore. You make me sick. All the people you know with drug and alcohol addictions, you think it's all so funny. Well, I don't think it's funny. I think it's tragic. And I think you're tragic too." "I think the only thing that's tragic is people who can't take a joke," I said. She slammed the door and walked out of my life. Her ancient lighter was still on my dash. I picked it up, shook it, and realized it was almost out of fluid. Knowing I'd be too lazy to ever refill it, I tossed it on the back seat, which was full of fast food containers and other items that were no longer useful. Driving away, I noticed a little sobriety chip had started to dance for me again. I pulled into the first tavern I found to see if what Kelly had told me about it was true.